The morning sun had barely risen when Ethan parked his old truck outside the local pharmacy, just like he did every day before work. The streets glowed softly in the golden light, the kind that made the small town feel almost sacred. He stepped out, adjusting the coffee in one hand and his daughter Lily's backpack in the other. Every morning followed the same rhythm: drop Lily at school, stop by the pharmacy for her asthma medication refill, and grab something quick for breakfast before heading to his construction job. Life had become routine, almost mechanical. Until she appeared. The first time Ethan saw her, she was struggling to get out of a taxi, her wheelchair caught against the curb. He had parked just a few feet away. Without thinking, he rushed over, offering his help. She looked startled at first, then grateful, and together they managed to get her wheelchair onto the pavement. He noticed her smile. It was tired yet kind, the kind of smile people wear when life hasn't been gentle, but they still choose grace. After that morning, Ethan saw her again. And again. Every single day, around the same time, at the same pharmacy. Sparkles, before we go deeper into this heart-touching story, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of helping others, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel Kindness Thread. Your support helps us keep spreading these real and emotional stories of humanity. Each morning, their paths crossed. Sometimes he would help her push the wheelchair up the small slope. Other days, he'd hold the door open or pick up a dropped grocery bag. She always thanked him softly, almost shyly, and rolled away before he could say much else. Lily, his 7-year-old daughter, had started noticing too. "Daddy, that's the same lady every day," she'd chirp from the truck window. Ethan would just nod, smiling faintly, brushing it off as coincidence. But deep inside, he felt something, a quiet pull, a question he couldn't quite name. Ethan was a man of few words and too many responsibilities. Since his wife, Emma, had passed away 3 years ago in a car accident, his world had become small: work, home, and Lily. He had learned to carry his pain like a heavy backpack he never took off. People admired him for his strength, for being the kind of father who never gave up. But they didn't see the nights he sat in the dark after Lily fell asleep, staring at the empty space beside him, wondering if life would ever feel whole again. The woman, whose name he didn't know, became part of that quiet routine, like a small spark in his otherwise gray mornings. Her face lingered in his mind more than he wanted to admit. There was something about her eyes, something familiar yet distant, as if they had seen a world he had once known but forgotten. Weeks turned into months. Ethan's routine remained steady, but his heart began to notice the details: the way her hair caught the sunlight, the tremor in her hand as she reached for her purse, the faint sadness that lived behind her polite smile. One day, Lily insisted on bringing her a small flower she picked from their garden. "Because she looks like she needs a happy day," Lily said. The woman's eyes filled with tears as she accepted it. "Thank you, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice cracking. "You have no idea what that means." It was a crisp Tuesday morning when everything changed. The sun was bright, the air smelled of fresh rain, and Ethan spotted her again, right on time. As usual, he parked nearby, helped her down the small ramp, and smiled. But this time, she didn't roll away. Instead, she looked at him with trembling lips and eyes glistening with emotion. "You don't remember me, do you?" she said softly. Ethan froze. The words felt strange, like a whisper from a dream he couldn't recall. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, not sure he heard her right. The woman's hands gripped her wheelchair tightly as she looked down, her voice barely a whisper. "3 years ago, you were the one who tried to save me." For a moment, everything around Ethan seemed to blur, the sounds, the light, the gentle breeze, all fading into a ringing silence. His breath caught in his throat. "Save you," he repeated, his voice breaking. She nodded slowly, tears sliding down her cheeks. It was raining. A car lost control on the bridge. "You pulled me out before the car went over the edge, but my husband didn't make it." Ethan's knees went weak. He remembered that night. The storm. The screaming. The twisted metal. He had jumped into the rushing rain without thinking, dragging 2 people out of a crumpled car. One man hadn't survived. He had spent weeks trying to forget that night because it reminded him too much of the night he lost Emma. He had always carried guilt, believing he could have done more, been faster. And now, the woman before him, this woman he had unknowingly helped every morning, was the wife of that man. His heart ached in his chest. I didn't know, he whispered, his voice raw. She smiled faintly through her tears. I know you didn't. I recognized you the first day, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. I just wanted to thank you for saving me. You gave me another chance at life, and I didn't even know how to live it anymore. But seeing you, watching how you care for your daughter every morning, how you still help others even when you're clearly hurting, it gave me strength to keep going. Ethan felt something break inside him, an old wall of grief finally cracking open. All this time, he had thought he was just helping a stranger. But maybe, in helping her, he had been helping himself too. He looked up at the sky, fighting back tears. Maybe we were both meant to find each other again, he said softly. From that day forward, their meetings weren't just silent moments of kindness, they became shared reminders of hope. Ethan and the woman, whose name he learned was Grace, began talking more. They shared stories of loss, healing, and the weight of second chances. Lily adored her, often calling her Miss Grace and insisting on visiting her after school. Slowly, quietly, life started to open up again for both of them. Months passed, and Grace began therapy to regain partial movement in her legs. Ethan often accompanied her, pushing her wheelchair down the sunlit paths outside the rehab center, both of them talking about the past and the future as if time itself was giving them a second chance. One bright afternoon, Grace managed to stand with support for the first time. Ethan was there, holding her hand, his eyes wide with pride. You did it, he whispered. Grace smiled through tears. No, she said softly, looking at him and Lily standing together, we did it. The world seemed a little lighter after that. Ethan no longer felt trapped by his grief, and Grace no longer felt defined by her loss. Together, they had learned that healing doesn't always mean forgetting, it means finding new ways to live with the memories, to let love and kindness rebuild what pain once tore apart. If this story touched your heart and reminded you of the power of kindness, second chances, and human connection, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Thread. Your support helps us keep sharing these emotional stories that bring light to dark places. Before you go, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. What's one act of kindness that changed your life or someone else's? Share your story below, it might inspire someone who really needs hope today. As the sun set behind the small-town pharmacy one last time, Ethan watched Grace take a few careful steps beside her wheelchair. Lily clapped her hands in pure joy. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt peace wash over him. Life had come full circle, not through miracles or luck, but through kindness, courage, and the quiet power of never giving up. Because sometimes, the people we help without expecting anything in return, are the ones meant to help us heal. The morning sun spilled gold across the glass towers of Tokyo as a sleek black limousine glided through the city's rush hour. Inside sat Richard Hale, a world-famous American CEO known for his ruthless efficiency and unshakable confidence. His company, Hale Technologies, was on the verge of sealing the biggest partnership in its history, a deal worth over $1 billion with a Japanese conglomerate. Every minute mattered, every decision counted. But as fate would have it, the story of that day would not be remembered for the deal itself, but for a humble woman sitting behind the steering wheel. Her name was Ava Thompson, a 32-year-old driver assigned temporarily to Hale Technologies visiting executives. She wore a crisp uniform, her hair neatly tied back, her eyes calm and observant. Few knew her past, and even fewer cared. To Richard, she was just another employee, another face in the background of his busy life. He didn't even look at her when he entered the car that morning, glued instead to his phone, barking orders into his Bluetooth headset. But destiny, with its quiet and mysterious hand, was already setting up the stage for something extraordinary. Before we dive deeper, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of unseen heroes, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Thread. Because sometimes, one act of grace can rewrite an entire story. As the car moved through the city, Richard scrolled through presentation slides. The deal they were heading to finalize had been months in the making. He would meet executives from Nakamura Group, a company deeply rooted in Japanese culture and values. Richard, impatient and arrogant, often dismissed such formalities as outdated. Business is business, he always said. Numbers talk, not people. Ava, listening silently, knew he was wrong. She had once been in his world, a linguist and cultural consultant working across continents before life took a cruel turn. Her husband, an engineer, had died in an accident overseas, leaving her with debts and shattered dreams. She had lost everything, her job, her home, her hope. Starting over in Japan, she took the only work she could find, driving executives around. Yet, beneath that simple job title lived a woman fluent in 9 languages, a woman who understood people far better than most understood themselves. As the limousine approached the Nakamura headquarters, Richard noticed a message on his phone. His translator had fallen ill that morning and wouldn't make it. "Damn it," he muttered. "Guess we'll use that translation app again." Ava's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. She knew this could go wrong. The Japanese valued respect, tone, and cultural harmony. A mistranslated phrase could destroy years of negotiation. But she said nothing. It wasn't her place. When they arrived, the grand building gleamed under the daylight. Men in suits bowed politely at the entrance. Richard walked ahead confidently, rehearsing his speech in English, unaware that many of the Japanese executives spoke only limited English. The meeting began awkwardly. Every attempt to translate using the app came out robotic and sometimes even offensive. The atmosphere grew tense. The faces of the Nakamura board members stiffened. Richard didn't notice. He kept talking faster, his impatience showing. Ava waited outside in the car, glancing at the tall windows. Minutes turned to an hour. Then the doors burst open. Richard stormed out, red-faced, muttering under his breath. "They're pulling out. They said we disrespected them. Can you believe this?" He climbed into the back seat, furious. Ava looked at him through the rearview mirror, her calm eyes meeting his. For a brief moment, she hesitated. Should she speak up? Would he even listen? Then, as if guided by something greater than fear, she softly said, "Sir, may I ask what exactly went wrong?" Richard snapped, "They misunderstood my proposal, that's what. They're being overly sensitive." Ava took a deep breath. "Sir, may I try something? I speak Japanese. Maybe I can clarify the misunderstanding." Richard blinked, confused. "You speak Japanese?" He almost laughed, and for a moment, he did. A short, dismissive laugh. "We don't need a driver to fix corporate diplomacy." But something in her steady voice made him pause. Ava didn't flinch. "Please, sir. Let me try. You have nothing to lose now." Reluctantly, he agreed. Ava stepped out of the car and walked into the boardroom, her posture straight yet humble. The Japanese executives, surprised to see the driver return, exchanged curious glances. In fluent, respectful Japanese, Ava bowed and began to speak. "Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to clarify the misunderstanding from earlier." Her tone was warm, formal, and precise. She explained that Mr. Hale's earlier comments were not meant to dismiss tradition but to express admiration for efficiency and progress. She used the right honorifics, the right pauses, and even referenced a Japanese proverb about unity and understanding. The room softened. Faces that had been cold a moment ago began to relax. One of the directors smiled faintly, nodding. They invited her to sit. Then came the real miracle. During the discussion, an unexpected complication arose. A section of the deal documents was written in Mandarin, referring to a subcontractor from China. The translators had struggled with it earlier. Without hesitation, Ava read the page aloud, translating effortlessly into Japanese. Gasps filled the room. Then another clause in German, and she translated again. French. Arabic. Korean. Spanish. One by one, she navigated through them all. The executives were astonished, so was Richard, who stood frozen by the door, watching the woman he had laughed at only an hour ago save the deal of his career. By the time Ava finished, the meeting had transformed completely. The head of Nakamura Group rose and bowed deeply to her. "We thank you for your understanding and respect." He turned to Richard and said through Ava's translation, "We are honored to proceed with this partnership." The deal was saved, not by power, not by money, but by humility and the hidden brilliance of a woman the world had overlooked. Outside, as they left the building, Richard walked beside Ava in silence. The arrogance that once shadowed his face was gone. Finally, he said quietly, "I owe you more than I can ever repay." Ava simply smiled, her eyes reflecting the sunlight. Sometimes, sir, she said gently, respect speaks louder than language. Later that evening, the news broke, Hale Technology secures historic partnership with Nakamura Group. But the headlines didn't mention Ava's name. She didn't need them to. For her, the true reward was knowing she had turned pain into purpose, silence into strength. And for Richard, that day changed everything. He promoted Ava, not as a driver, but as the company's international communications director. From that moment, he made it a policy to listen before judging, a lesson that would shape his legacy forever. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Thread. Let's remind the world that compassion and respect can change more than just minds, they can change destinies. Speech balloon before you go, tell us in the comments, what's one time someone's kindness or hidden talent surprised you and changed how you saw them? Because sometimes, the people we overlook are the ones who hold the power to change everything.